Good afternoon and good evening, NABJ, depending on your time zone. I'm Melanie Eversley, Chair of the Elections Committee. Tonight, we're approaching the end of our first round of campaign debates. But first, I'd like to remind you of a few dates coming up. June 11th, there will be a second forum with treasurer candidates. June 25th, there will be a second forum with candidates for academic representative. By July 6th, you must have your membership in place in order to be eligible to vote. July 13th through August 7th, there will be electronic voting. And finally, winners will be announced the evening of August 7th. With that, I'd like to introduce our moderator for the evening. Alexander Quince is executive producer at WABC TV, Channel 7 here in New York. He also has worked as executive producer at WXIA, an NBC station in Atlanta, and assistant news director at the ABC affiliate in Birmingham. He also is former vice president broadcast of the New York Association of Black Journalists and a member of the Elections Committee. With that, I'll turn it over to Alexander.
Thank you, Melanie, and thank you everyone for being here tonight on this event. I would like to quickly review the rules for tonight's discussion. There will be a 2-minute opening statement by the candidates, 1 minute for responses, 30 seconds for rebuttal if requested, 2-minute closing statement. I would ask that the candidates please stick to qualifications, keep it civil. Audience, you will have an opportunity to ask questions by submitting them via Zoom chat or the Q&A feature. And please, candidates, watch Melanie for the 10-second warning. She will give you an indication if you need to wrap up your statements because you are getting close to the allotted time. At this time, I would like to take the opportunity to read the bios to give you some background on the candidates before we get started with our discussion. First, I will begin with Trevell Anderson, who is running for Region 4 Director. Trevell Anderson is an entertainment reporter, film critic, and co-host of the Fan Type podcast. Trevell is based in the Los Angeles area and is president of NABJ LA, as well as co-chair of NABJ's LGBTQ task force. Trevell has an undergraduate degree from Morehouse and a graduate degree from Stanford. Michelle Fitzhugh-Craig, running for Parliamentarian. Michelle Fitzhugh-Craig is an award-winning journalist based in Oakland, who is founder and publisher of Shades magazine, celebrating all women of color. She is also a founder of MFC3 Media. Michelle is former city editor for Globe newspapers and the Oakland Tribune. She graduated from the Arizona State University Cronkite School. And with that, I would like to begin with the opportunity to hear from our candidates. I would like to begin with a 2-minute opening statement from each of you, and we will begin with Trevell Anderson, please.
Thank you. So as he mentioned, I've been president here in LA for about 4 years now, a member of NABJ my entire professional career. And in that time, I've experienced firsthand how I feel Region 4, as well as other important groups within the organization, kind of get the short end of the stick. I'm hoping that that doesn't continue under my leadership. I feel like I often hear a lot of conversation during the election cycles about people's times leading their local chapters and how it's the chapters that keep NABJ going. But then a lot of people get into these offices and I feel as if some of the actions and some of the happenings that are approved from the board aren't with the chapters in particular mind, and particularly without, giving even kind of due to all of the members in our organization. As Region 4 Director, I'm planning to use the interests of my members in my region to push me forward and dictate how I make decisions on the board. I'm interested in being a vocal presence, bringing my unique brand of leadership and slay to the board to make sure that at minimum, my members in my region feel represented and feel like at least I'm advocating on their behalf, but hopefully that they feel that the national organization finally, you know, represents and is moving with some of their interests in mind. I'm not here to get caught up in politics or alliances or under the table dealings. Many of us know how, unfortunately, that's how this organization continues to run. And I'm interested in doing things the way that I've been doing it here with my team here in LA, and hopefully trying to bring some of that transparency and that clarity to the national board. Thank y'all so much.
Thank you. And at this time, we would like to hear from Michelle.
Thank you, Alexander. Good afternoon, everyone. Good evening to those of you back east. In 2001, I fell in love. I was working at the Arizona Republic and was recruited by some colleagues to join this professional organization that supported and advocated for Black journalists. I was intrigued. I joined the local chapter, and as host of the 2001 NABJ convention, I was immersed in learning about who we are and what we do. By the time August rolled around, I was sold, hook, line, and sinker. I've served under 10 presidents. I've served as secretary, vice president, chapter president, and immediate past president in Arizona. I have served as vice president and chapter president in the San Francisco Bay Area. I was chair of the Council of Presidents twice. I served as the Region 6 director, which is Region 4 now, for 2 terms. And most recently, I was membership chair and the elections chairwoman. I also am the mother of 4 grown children and Mima to 2 grandkids. I mention this because these roles are the most important ones I've ever held. They have helped shape and mold me into being one who supports all people, regardless of their race, ethnicity, gender, sexual orientation, religion, physical, mental, or emotional challenges, or their political views. I've always fought for women, people of color, and underrepresented communities everywhere. It is all of this that makes me the ideal person to hold the position of parliamentarian. Thank you.
And thank you. And I would encourage all of our participants who are watching tonight's discussion to please remember you can include your questions just by joining on the chat indicator at the bottom of the screen, or you may go with Q&A because I would like to engage the candidates with your questions. With that, I will open up a question to both of the candidates. There will be the same question, and we will begin with Trevell. What are your plans for the first 100 days in office?
Thank you. First and foremost, I'm interested in pooling kind of the interest of the different chapter leaders within my region. I want to know what type of regional programming makes sense for us as a region, particularly because I feel because of how spread out we are and because we don't have an easily accessible train system, for example, that connects some of the chapters, doing regional group events is often difficult for us. And I think that's one of the reasons why we haven't had them in the past few years. And so I want to first pool the chapter leaders, which I've already begun doing. Secondly, I want to work across the region with the other regional directors. The LA chapter had a particular not positive experience working with the national organization trying to put on a regional event last year, and it came down to money. And long story short, it was LA's belief that if we're doing all the work, we should be able to get some of the money, and that wasn't what we were able to work out. So I'm interested in figuring out what type of profit sharing proposal we can put together to better serve the chapters.
Thank you. And Michelle, I would like to ask you the same question. What are your plans for the first 100 days in office?
For the first 100 days, I think what I want to do is first, find out what has been done the last 2 years at least. I don't want to come in and, think that I'm going to change things or recreate or bring all these propositions to the board. I want to kind of continue with what Corey has been doing, the current parliamentarian, and also find out what others think. I know recently, the last few years, we have updated and improved the operational procedures. So there's no need to do that. But I know there are a lot of people across the country that have concerns about different areas, and just be able to look at them. Is there anything we can improve on? One area was around elections, no fault to anyone, but just kind of look and see what can be done and make sure everyone understands what the rules are. Thank you.
And thank you. And then the second question for both candidates, beginning with you, Trevell. NABJ has been impacted by the coronavirus pandemic, as we all are aware. How would you use your position to help support members of the organization during this time?
I think it's ultimately, we need to know what our members need. And I know there have been a number of efforts by the national office thus far to there's a survey going around to figure out exactly how folks are impacted. But even just as an LA chapter president, I know that sometimes they're not opening the newsletter. They're not clicking on the survey. And so we need to pick up the phone. And so as a regional director, it would be my responsibility, I think, to pick up the phone and call the members in our region and see exactly what they need and perhaps how NABJ can assist with that.
I'm going to agree with Trevell there. I think it's important to, one, find out what is the need with our members. And I'm here to support our regional directors, anyone else to see what is needed to help where it is possible. But I think one of the things that I personally can do is I do have a large network of people that I've worked with over the years, and just being able to connect people is something I do well. And if I can continue with that, I think that's probably the best thing I can do, is just connect the people who need help with the ones that can help them.
Thank you. And what I will do now is focus on some individual questions regarding your specific offices that you're running for. With Trevell, what do you view as the most prominent concern or issue in Region 4 at this time? And to follow up with that, how would you address it?
I think the region is too big to have just one issue, to be quite honest with you. I know here in California specifically, one of the big concerns right now is AB 5, which is a new law that is impacting a lot of freelancers and contract workers. We've been trying to do some work on a local level with dealing with that, but as regional director, I would tap into the resources in the San Diego chapter, resources in the Bay Area chapter, to see what type of efforts as NABJ we can put together to support and make sure that our members, many of which who are freelancers, aren't negatively affected by this particular law. And then the last thing I'll say is I think there's also just a general issue, as I mentioned before, about connectivity among our particular chapters here, and figuring out ways that we can kind of build kind of coalitions and alliances and supporting each other outside of maybe perhaps particular events.
Thank you. And Michelle, what procedures would you recommend that the NABJ board adopt, and why?
To be honest, I don't have a list or any ideas of as far as what needs to be done. I think what I need to do, as I said previously, is to get in there and find out exactly where we are. I'm aware of the procedures, and I think we need to look at them as a board and see, if they work, if they don't work, and go from them. I don't want to come in with, this is nothing against any past parliamentarian, because I love you guys. But I think what happens is we come in, and as the board as a whole is, okay, we want to change this, we want to do this because it's a new term. It's a new president. I think we need to really look at the overall and going forward, not just for the next 2 years, the next 4 years. So that's where I'm going to base my decisions and moving forward on. Thank you.
Thank you. Shifting gears now to current events in light of the death of George Floyd. That has been garnering a lot of attention locally, nationally, across all platforms as well. Do you feel that the national office has a role to play in a discussion with these types of matters, and if so, how? I'll begin with you, Trevell.
I definitely think so. It is our responsibility. It's one of the mission statements of this organization to be kind of a media monitoring organization in terms of how our communities are being kind of portrayed in the media. And what we see with a lot of the reporting is, the social uprisings that are happening with our people are termed a lot differently when you look at the same social uprisings that happen with, folks of other racial and ethnic backgrounds. And I think it's our organization's responsibility to call that out when we see it. Sometimes we do it, sometimes we don't. But I think it should be our responsibility to kind of be more hands-on and call those out immediately, not just when, we get to convention and we do our thumbs down vote, right? It needs to be something that we continuously do, and I think that's one approach to it.
Thank you. I appreciate your response. And Michelle, how would you respond to the overall national organization having a role in that type of story?
I think anything that is newsworthy, highlights the injustice, the racism, anything against people of color, primarily African Americans and Black Americans, I think it's crucial for us to step up and do something. If it's making a statement against it, but also we need to make sure we're keeping an eye on how it's being covered. We've got outlets all over the globe looking at some of these issues, and we need to make sure that the stories are being told right, and justice is being served the best that we can in our coverage and support of doing something.
Thank you. And I have a question for the both of you, and I will pivot back to the coronavirus pandemic. It has impacted the way many businesses operate and the way people live, and it has impacted the way members can come together and also grow their local chapters and ultimately grow the national body. How would you use this opportunity and use your office to help build locally where you are and also help build the national organization in light of what's going on these past several months dealing with the pandemic? I'll begin with you, Trevell.
I think that it's important for people to know what service that they can get from, whether it's us on a local level or us on a national level. And I think a lot of that comes with the programming. On the local level, we've seen, I believe, 3 to 5 new members just over the last week, which is a surprise for us considering we are in this particular moment. But I think that is because of the digital programming that we've been doing, that our members and folks outside of our organization have said have been useful and necessary for them. And so on the national level, I think that doing more programming that is of use to our members, and again, that's because we were able to do that in LA because we know what our members want. I think that is the way to kind of increase the value proposition for being a member of this organization that will lead to folks joining long term and renewing their memberships every single year. Thank you.
You're welcome. Michelle, how would you respond to helping grow the membership base during this time?
I think that I agree with Trevell as far as programming, but I think this is a really difficult time where people, it's great what they have in LA, and there are other chapters like that who pull together and work well together. But there are a lot that they don't see each other as much, as maybe those chapters do. They don't hold regular meetings. And I think any way that I can maybe reach out to the chapter presidents or leaders in that chapter to just let them know that we are here. What can we do? I think we need to, pick up that phone and reach out directly, because not everyone has that family unit that, those larger chapters do. Thanks.
I appreciate that. I will now shift gears and go to one of the questions from our audience, and this is directed to you, Michelle. The person is saying, as a former parliamentarian, they believe that there is a desperate need to review the Constitution and bylaws and propose changes to realign the organization. What will be your priority as parliamentarian, and can we expect to see proposed amendments to consider in the 2021 election cycle?
Well, thank you, former parliamentarian. I think what we need to do, there is a lot of talk about the downsizing and how we can trim things, make them clear, make them work better for the organization where we are in 2020. I think that research is important first, to find out what is needed and why it's needed, and to present these facts that are found to the board, so that we aren't just going by emotion or I like or I don't like, but actually look at what works best. We've gone, when I started with the organization, we were at, I think it was 12 regions. It might have been more, and now we're down to 4. We increased several years back, adding more vice presidents. Do we need to come down? So I think we need to look at the numbers and if they work or not, as I said, just work on emotions if you want it or not. Thank you.
You're welcome. And Trevell, one question for you. The West Coast NABJ chapters have expressed a desire to feel more of a part of the larger organization. Can you share one or two of your ideas how you would make that happen?
Well, I think ultimately it comes down to, I'll speak as a West Coast person individually, the amount of money that we have to invest into coming to national every single year as compared to the other folks from other regions and other parts of the country is kind of absurd. And the justification that I've been told as to why decisions are made for where we go is because of where the bulk of the membership is. And from my members, the response has always been, we're not asking you to, for example, come out here every single year, but like you can come out once every 10 years or something like that. I know next year's convention is supposed to be, we'll see what Corona does, but it's supposed to be in Las Vegas. And I think that's a start. But then again, Las Vegas is a city that for many of us who are out here on the West Coast does not seem that decision was made with us in mind. Rather, it was made with, other motivations. And so I think that's just one example in terms of West Coast members feeling more a part of the organization.
Can I respond or say something about that? Am I able to?
Yes, please. You have the opportunity. Okay. Go ahead.
Yeah, because I'm on the West Coast, and during my tenure, I've been in either Arizona or California, so in this region. And I understand the frustration. I've spoken it, I've screamed it many times, and we need to figure out something. I've been on the board, so I understand the money side of it and who would come and who would not come. However, we need to do something, because if you could build up this part of the country, then it would be economically feasible to come out here more. When I first joined, they had decided, I think in the 2000, the Unity, I know it was Unity, but they were going to start coming out west more. And that went by the wayside, so we do need to figure out something to include everyone in the country, and it needs to happen sooner rather than later. Thank you.
You're welcome. Now we'll move to a question where both of you could address. Given the current climate, particularly with the economic downturn created by the coronavirus, businesses, organizations are very much in need of corporate sponsorship and in some cases corporate support. Do you feel NABJ should receive corporate sponsorship for certain events or in general? And if so, how should those companies be vetted? I'll begin with you, Trevell.
Well, I mean, I think if I understand correctly in terms of how this organization, gets the bulk of its money, it's through some of these partnerships with different corporations. I think we should be making decisions based on whether or not these potential partners reflect the values of NABJ. And I think that should be a rigorous process. It shouldn't just be something that is done just because we see some dollar signs, which I feel like that's how most members feel as if some of the decisions are made. And so I actually think that's a simple answer is the bylaws, the Constitution is right there. And so I just feel like, if a company or organization is not in service of those particular values, then why would we be partnering with them?
Thank you for your response. Michelle?
Hey, can you repeat it again, please, the question?
Yes, given the current climate of things, particularly with the downturn economically because of the coronavirus pandemic, corporate sponsorship, partnerships with corporations are important. Do you feel NABJ, national organization, should be in partnership with these companies? And if so, how should they properly be vetted?
I think we definitely need to partner. This is something we've done for some time. As far as vetting them and how we move forward, for many years, we've had issues with having such a small staff to work with. I know things cost money, but I think that if we could find a way to utilize contractors, even there's so many journalists we have within the organization who have these skills and who have moved on. But if we could use contractors to either vet some of these companies, to research and even find new ones, that might work out better than tasking the current staff who has way too many things to do already. And I think we might find a better way of doing it that way. Thank you.
I appreciate both of your responses for that. At this time, I will transition to a question from one of the attendees. I will read it out loud and then Trevell, you can answer, and then we will move to Michelle. And if you need for me to repeat the question, I will be happy to do so. The question states, how can NABJ be doing more to reach younger journalists just getting into the industry? The common line is always about getting them to the convention, which is a value, but what about finding ways to reach them where they are? I'll begin with you, Trevell.
So let me first start by saying I misspoke and said that next year is Vegas. 2022 is Vegas, next year is Houston. All of the days are running into each other. To answer the question about reaching younger journalists, I think, I was in this very situation, which, I had some veterans of the organization telling me that the way that I get involved, the way that I, find jobs, the way that I kind of build this family that we say NABJ is supposed to be is by coming to the convention. But again, the convention is often cost prohibitive for a lot of folks. And while there are a number of entities in place to kind of support some of those, I think ultimately this is where empowering our chapters come into play. Our chapters should be empowered enough and have enough support by the national organization so that they're able to reach out, not only just reach out to, but be an actual resource to the local college chapters that might be under their auspices, right? And that also is where the regional director comes into play. As president of LA, I have 100+ members members that I'm having to deal with. But the regional director is someone who should be able to, be hands-on and connect student chapters with the folks in the local areas to assist them.
Thank you. And Michelle, I'll give you that opportunity to respond.
I think one way to reach this group of people who are, and we lovingly and unlovingly dub them the millennials, is to know who they are. I think I mentioned about being a mom, and I am a mom to 4 millennials. And being around them has made me more sensitive and more patient with this group and what they need and what they want. Trevell is right as far as, it's too costly for them to travel sometimes. They don't have the connections. So what can we do? Again, I talked about contracting a minute ago. We have, I don't know what the numbers are at now, but I know well over 3,000 members. And there are people there who want to help. We need to find a way to hook up some of these veteran and even younger members to these younger ones. And this is the perfect time. Everyone's on Zoom, everyone's digitally, inept. So we need to make sure that we're reaching them that way. Thank you.
Thank you. We'll move forward now towards the closing statements, and I will give each candidate approximately 2 minutes to give your closing statements and to share anything you would like in addition to the information and the positions that you have shared already. And I would like to begin with Trevell. You have the floor.
Thank you. I'm going to use my closing statement time to kind of further answer some of the questions that was presented. First of all, addressing the question about getting to younger people. I know when I was a student, I didn't even know that NABJ really existed. I had heard about this thing, but it didn't seem like an organization that was for me. And now that I'm in the organization, I can see why younger people don't feel like NABJ is an organization for them. And a lot of that is because, as somebody who is a growing leader in this organization, that antagonistic, nasty attitude toward younger people, millennials, persists in how a lot of the veterans even deal with me as a chapter leader. And so I think there's kind of a reworking that we have to do, particularly as leadership and particularly as a broader body, in order to signal to people, particularly younger folks, that this is a home for them as well. And then that brings me to, the work that I do with the LGBTQ task force. A lot of the work we've been doing over the last 3 or 4 years has been about letting them know that NABJ can be a home for them too, and that they can be out and proud, and still, be professional as well. And so I think both of those points connect. And ultimately what it comes down to is, as an organization, we have to adjust. We have to be open to criticism, be open to critique, and then to ideate and innovate based on that. And I hope that with me as regional director, as well as some of the other folks that have been, that are currently on the board, formerly on the board, as well as just, chapter members in general who are interested in seeing the organization not only sustain, but seeing it improve, I think we'll be able to, build a body and a coalition together to move us in that direction. Thank you.
Thank you. And Michelle, your opportunity for closings.
Yes, thank you. I just want to follow up with the last question too. And I talked about, not only do I have the 4 children, I also taught from 2012 to 2017 at the Cronkite School. And I listened and talked to a lot of students there, and I hope to bring some of that and what this group is wanting and needing from us to the board and to the organization. According to Chapter 2, Article 1, Section 5 of the NABJ Operating Procedures, the parliamentarian shall be the chief interpreter of Robert's Rules of Order and the NABJ Constitution and board operating procedures, and shall serve as Sergeant at Arms during all meetings. This is what I pledge to do. I will serve as I always have. I may come off firm, but I never serve to make friends. You may not like me, but I guarantee I will gain your respect. I'm fair, I'm honest, and my ego is never a factor, especially when in service. This has been my calling card since the mid-1980s when I was director of the Miss Black Arizona pageant. I've continued my service with multiple nonprofit boards, including Exceptional Women in Publishing, which I currently oversee. I am the founder, publisher of Shades Magazine, celebrating all women of color, and I am the owner of MFC3 Media. I will always advocate for and support our president and this board, our members, and our allies. There is a lot going on in the world that impacts us. We have work to do, and we must be on point in all areas of operations. My job is to make sure we are. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Typically with your closing statements, we would wrap it up. However, you know how our folks do sometimes. Now we got questions coming in. And since we have, and since I have this opportunity and you all are here, I think it would be beneficial for our members to hear from you as much as possible, if that's okay. Would you be okay handling a few more questions that's coming from the group?
Sure.
And one deals, it's similar to a question that we had earlier, but it's as important. How would you connect with college and high school students, mentors? Once again, how would you connect college and high school student mentors? And I'll begin with you, Trevell.
I think they're trying to say connect college and high school students to mentors. There is we just had a Council of Presidents call yesterday, a couple days ago. And I know that there is a mentorship program that is in place, that is in kind of the ideation phase that they mentioned on the call that will roll out in the next coming weeks. And so I think that's a great beginning, right? But I do want to say that not every college, not every Black student who is interested in journalism goes to a school that has an NABJ chapter, goes to a school that even has a Black media professional on their campus. And so I'd be interested in figuring out other ways that we can do the necessary marketing, the necessary push to ensure that anyone who is interested and qualifies for such a mentorship program is able to make use of it.
Thank you, Michelle.
Same question. If I remember correctly, maybe about 2005 to 2010, we had I don't know if it was really a program, but we had sister chapters. And that was a way for chapters who maybe were stronger than others, paired with those who maybe didn't have as many members or the resources. And that was a way to connect with one another. Now, we could do the same thing with the students. Of course, we'd have to create some kind of database, which is a whole nother, job. But again, we've got contractors, we've got people who are willing to help if we go beyond the norm, put out exactly what we want and pull these people in and help them be the instruments to bring these people together. I think that's the only way we're going to do it, because we can't do it as a board, we can't do it as a staff only. We need to start having our members step up as they want to, and we need to allow them to do that.
Thank you for those responses. I do appreciate it. And at this time, I would like for each of you to give the people who are attending and watching this discussion, please give information as how they can keep up with you and your campaign, and we will get that information out to them as well. So beginning with you, Trevell, if you could please tell people how they can keep up with you during your campaign, any social media handles or anything along those lines.
I don't have any campaign-specific social media handles, but I'm on Twitter at Trevell Anderson, and you can contact me at anderson.trevell@gmail if you'd like to continue any of these conversations.
Thank you. And Michelle, how may people follow you and get in contact with you if they would like to?
Yes. I don't have a campaign page either running on those, but you can reach me on Instagram, Twitter, and on Facebook at Talk 2 MFC Talk, the number 2 MFC. Also MFC News on Twitter is the second one. And then Shades Magazine one on Twitter. I have several, way too many. So that's, I think, enough.
Well, thank you for sharing that. And I want to thank you and Trevell for your time to give us your insight and to share with the members why you are running for the office and the positive things that you would bring to the organization. So once again, thank you very much for your time and the information that you shared. A few housekeeping notes. June 25th will be our second forum with candidates for academic representation. By July 6th, you must have your membership in place to be eligible to vote. That's to our members. July 13th through August 7th will be electronic voting. So that's something that we are very excited about doing here with the national organization. And on August 7th, the winners for the offices will be announced. So once again, I want to thank you for your time. Michelle, I want to thank you for your time, Trevell, and I want to thank all of the people who attended to listen to this discussion. Thank you for your time as well and your questions. It is greatly appreciated. So we look forward to seeing you down the road. Do take care and have a good evening. This concludes our forum for tonight.
Thank you, everyone.